Welcome to another episode of Fight the Burnout. Today we have special guest Adam Wills. He is a former undersheriff with a few different police departments around the United States, which he'll tell us about. And he's also going to tell us about the company he runs now, which is helping law enforcement transition from policing to what's next for them. Because when I saw this, I was like, oh my God, this is what I needed. And so it's kind of in lines a little bit with what I do to help you make sure that you are on point with your purpose and know what you need in life. And so it's going to be a great conversation today. Remember, also, it is sponsored by Create From Why. And make sure you like and subscribe and send this out to anybody who you know it might impact. And take one thing away. Just focus on one thing today. And just grab that and run with it, because otherwise we get overwhelmed. So before I keep rambling on, as I have a tendency to do, and we don't want that, Adam, why don't you take it away? Tell us a little bit about yourself, your backstory, and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Chris. Appreciate it. It's always fun to be on the other side of the microphone instead of being the host having to do these intros myself. So it's good to be on the show.
It's awesome to have you.
So yeah, I like you said, I finished out my law enforcement career in the state of Colorado as an undersheriff. Retired at a rather young age. I was actually the youngest undersheriff in the state of Colorado when I was appointed. But did about 15 years in law enforcement, all told, between the start of my career in Western upstate New York, and then spent the bulk of my career out in Colorado. But yeah, now I actually I wear a few different hats. As any good entrepreneur, I've got several different things that I'm doing, right? And we're actually in a process right now of bringing all of those things under one house. But my main company is actually called Breacher Marketing. We're a full service marketing agency. We kind of pride ourselves in working most specifically with companies that are in what we have labeled the aggressive industries. That's typically companies that are marketing products and services for first responders, military, that sort of thing. And if I can be candid here, it's usually these companies are people that are sick and tired of dealing with all of the snowflake marketing agencies out there that just don't really understand them or their customers and don't really know how to speak to them. And so that's sort of our niche that we work with. And then, like you said, we have this kind of other side of the house that started totally by accident almost 2 years ago now, which is called LEO2CEO. So as you and your audience knows, Leo being an acronym for law enforcement officer, the idea is that we really want to help other cops, as I like to call them, copreneurs, start, grow, and scale their own businesses. Whether they're still on the job or, are already planning a transition out, or maybe have already left and they've just kind of been seeking that next thing to help them break past where they're currently at in the growth of their business. And so we started the LEO2CEO community to help provide resources and education, training, networking for copreneurs, to be able to help each other out, bounce ideas off of one another. We do workshops every month. And we put out all kinds of resources on business and marketing. So yeah, that's my jam right there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, it's so important. I remember when I left, there was a bit of a what am I going to do next? And I've done about 6 things
Yeah.
since, and
Yes, sir.
fallen into a few quite decently, and now transitioning currently at the moment as well. As if you're, at the time of this recording, been posting some stuff up on LinkedIn and that about it, and Insta. So, Adam, tell us. Let's start a little bit with your career. You've been a few different agencies. You finished in Colorado. Tell us a little bit about your experience with burnout during that. I know currently it's a hot topic, and it's a buzzword, burnout. And I know back when I was a police until I got told, Chris, you got burnout, I was like, what the hell is burnout? Um,
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about your experience with that, and if you even identified it as burnout at the time.
Well, you hit the nail on the head there, because I always like to tell everybody I never in my life experienced burnout because I was never aware enough to recognize that I was suffering from it. And I think as cops, most of us would agree with that. We
Mm.
would share the same sentiment, because most of us tend to be type A, right? And people that are type A are hard chargers. We're driven people that when we set a goal and a focus on something, we achieve it at the expense of all else. And so we're we're almost wired in a way that says we're willing to sacrifice other things in order to achieve that which we set out for, um, which is a great quality if we want to accomplish things, but it can often lead to negative impacts in other areas of our life because they tend to get put to the wayside. And I think, unfortunately, that has developed a culture in law enforcement. Lately, I've been speaking to it in a way that I've likened it to um, the seven warning signs of an abusive relationship, and I've gotten some funny reactions to it. But I'm like, it's just the culture that's been created in law enforcement, unfortunately, because we are so type A and we're so willing to do whatever it takes in order to get the job done, that then becomes what our leadership expects of us. And before we know it, it kind of turns into this abusive relationship that nobody really intended.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, yeah, like you said, we put everything second to ourselves. I mean, in a way, you have to. We're running towards gunfire while everybody else is running away. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, I
Yeah.
totally get that one. So tell us a little bit about your experience with it during your
Yeah.
career.
I think for me, really, when I started to burn myself out and it really started to impact me was the last 5, almost 6 years of my career, which I spent as an administrator of a small law enforcement agency. So I had the honor of being asked by the elected sheriff in a sheriff's office in Eastern Colorado to come out and be his appointed undersheriff, which is second in command of the sheriff's office. For those that either may, I know you have a lot of listeners that aren't necessarily U.S. based, and that's kind of a U.S. thing. So it places you in second in command of the sheriff's office. It's an appointed position, so you don't have all the same protections as a hired employee does. You serve at the will of the sheriff, but I always wanted to be in leadership, and so I took that role on. And because we were a medium-sized law enforcement agency by Colorado standards, it meant that everybody in our agency wore a lot of different hats, which was a really awesome thing because our patrol guys, they got a lot of experience really fast because they didn't have the luxury of just showing up on a scene and then handing it over to the dick squad, right, and saying, here, you guys handle the rest of this investigation. No, you shagged a case and that was your case until it was done. And it didn't matter whether that was a property crime case or a homicide. We might get help from the district attorney's office or the Colorado Bureau of Investigation on a homicide case, but it was still your case and you were responsible for it to the end. And so it was a great thing. But as the type A leader that really likes to get involved and be down and dirty and not just sit behind a desk, I took on a lot of things. And so during that period of time, I wanted to support my guys and help them out. I didn't want to be the guy in the office, right? And so in addition to all of those office responsibilities, which, total side note, by the way, I always used to look at my command staff and go, what do they do? Just sit in their office and watch YouTube videos, right? And then when I became that guy, I realized, man, there's actually a lot to do, right? So in addition to all those admin roles, I was also a deputized U.S. Marshal on the U.S. Marshals Task Force, was hunting down fugitives. I from my previous experience at prior law enforcement agency, I really liked doing narcotics investigations, and I was also a gang investigator. And so I kind of knew those things already. And so I got wrapped up in a narcotics case that ended up for 2 years. 2 years I spent working this case without any of my staff knowing that I was even working this case. The only person that knew was the sheriff, and then the DEA and FBI guys that I was working on it with. And we ended up surprising all of my staff one morning at dark 30 by saying, hey, suit up. We've got to go out and kick down some doors. And they show up to briefing, and there's DEA, FBI, and we're like, yeah, we've got 37 federal arrest warrants here. Surprise, I've been working on this for 2 years. And that was when I really burned myself out. And I didn't realize it at the time because I was having a blast, and I felt my commitment to community, right?
Yeah.
To do what needed to be done. And so I choked those things down. I gutted them, and didn't realize the impact it was having, not only on my family, my wife and my kids, but me as well. And that really didn't come crashing down on me. I didn't really recognize the full weight of that until I actually retired and left my law enforcement career about 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago.
How did it impact your life?
Uh, towards the end of my career there, my wife actually mentioned to me that um, she described me as not really being the same person that she first started dating and ultimately married, because she says, when before you came out here to be undersheriff, you used to be able to uh, take off the uniform on your days off and just be you, right? Be laid back and have fun and be silly, and kind of let guard down just a little bit, right? I mean, I've always been the guy that's still going to sit with my back to the wall and look at the door, but um, that that wasn't who I was anymore those last several years. And I think part and parcel, it was because of the type of cases that I was dealing with, but also just constantly working. I mean, I was doing my office hours during the day, and then going out and making undercover buys during the night and doing surveillance. And so it was this constant work. I forgot how to shut it off. I could not remember how to turn off cop mode and just be me. And so when it came time for me to leave, I had a real identity crisis. Like I had almost forgotten who I was, and had to go through a period of time of really seeking, okay, what does this mean for me now? I'm not a cop anymore. Who is Adam, not the cop? Like, I don't know anybody else but Adam the cop. And so um, it was interesting. There's a story I like to tell everybody about. I don't like to tell it, actually. But I feel like it's important. Um, I've always been a proponent of concealed carry, off duty, or even civilian concealed carry. Right? You should always be prepared. Like Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman says, everywhere you go, carry a firearm, an extra magazine, a blade, and a light. Right? And that was me. But the last day that I worked, my last day on shift, I came home, I put my Glock in the safe, and for 6 months, I could not bring myself to actually pull it out of the safe and put it on, because I felt like that was wrapped up in my identity and that I didn't deserve to have it anymore.
It's quite interesting because I know so many officers who, when they leave or they're thinking about leaving, they're like, "Well, what am I, or who am I once I take the badge off, or the vest off?"
Right.
And it's such a massive thing, and it's why so many cops have hit that. I remember I left, and I ran into one of my old sergeants from when I first started. So this is like 6.5, 7 years after I had started in the place. I had left. I've been gone for 6 months. I've been out for about 6 months or so, and ran into him. He had left, and he was running a Zambreros, like which is like they do burritos and stuff like that, like a Mexican type. It's kind of like Subway but for Mexican food
Okay.
here. And yeah, and randomly, and I ran into him and saw him. I was like, "Oh, hey!" And he's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I told him I had left, and then he's like, "Just so you're aware, the 1 year mark. The 1 year mark is when everybody struggles." He's like,
Mm-hmm.
because you start to think, should I go back?
Yep.
And I remember it was about the 1 year mark, and that was actually, I was on leave without pay. It was about the time I was handing in my notice. I was going to resign, and it took me 6 weeks to write the resignation letter. And then I talked to my wife. I'm bawling my eyes out. Who am I? All this different stuff, because it's so true. We get so wrapped up
Yep. Yep.
in the identity that we're a cop, not who we actually are, that it can destroy us. and destroy everything around us. So, what did you do to shift that identity?
Well, it was a gradual process for me. And I don't know that there was any one pivotal moment that was like, oh, aha, like I'm good now, right? I mean, there's still things that I struggle with in that, right? Because I miss the excitement, I miss the camaraderie. I miss going into work and getting in a scuffle, right? And all those fun things and driving fast and and I don't think that's something that ever goes away, right? I mean, you talk to guys that even those that didn't love their military career, but they'll still tell you they miss the excitement of going into battle or the camaraderie of being in active duty service, right? But like you, I struggled all the time over the last several years of, oh, maybe I should go back. Maybe I should go take this job. Even though my business has been very successful, there's just that draw of like, it was fun, right? I loved my law enforcement career. It's not like I hated it, and so what really what was really beneficial for me actually, because in Colorado, once you leave a law enforcement agency and you're not working in law enforcement anymore, your post certification expires after 3 years, right? And so my post certification expired back in January. So now I can't go be a cop again unless I want to go through the academy again, which I guarantee you is not going to happen. So it's nice that I don't have to worry about that so much anymore. But the gradual process for me, like I started my marketing agency, which that's a whole story in and of itself. And I don't know if you want me to go there or not, but um, I actually started two businesses when I left. And marketing is something I've always had a passion for, writing, web design. I started building websites when I was a kid on my grandpa's computer, like in high school. And so it was something I always enjoyed and I did on the side throughout the years. But um, again, I struggled with the whole identity part of things and feeling like I had to do something that was somehow related to my law enforcement career. And so I was a CVSA examiner during my law enforcement career. So it's kind of like polygraph, but it's voice stress. And so I actually bought my own CVSA laptop and I started a consulting business working with defense attorneys, interviewing their clients to determine if their clients were actually telling them the truth or not about the fact that they didn't do it. Right. And so I was doing that and, I really wanted that business to go well. And I started this business also doing web design and some marketing stuff because I already had the opportunity. Like it was just, I needed to do something to bring in money. Right. So I was doing both of these things. And the funny thing about it was the marketing agency was growing and was taking off. And it was like a fire that was raging and I was pouring water on it, metaphorically trying to get it to go out because this other business consulting was wrapped up in my police identity. And I thought that was what I had to do. And it was working, but it wasn't like wildly successful. And so I was pouring gasoline on that fire, trying to get it to take off. And I finally realized I'm like, this is stupid. Like, what am I doing here? I've got to just focus in on this one thing. And so I did. And where the light bulb really went off for me with my marketing agency was when I realized that the skills that I had gained in my law enforcement career actually did apply because up to that point, I haven't given them any credit that they would apply to what I was doing, running this business in marketing and web design. And so where that light bulb moment happened for me, I picked up the book, Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. And I read that book. And when I was reading it, I realized, because the whole concept is human brains are wired for story. Story is a really great device for marketing. And so I had this moment where I'm like, wait a second, this is narrative transportation theory, which is something I was taught in interview interrogation school. And the idea of letting a person tell their story about the events of a day, because then it makes it more obvious where the gaps are. Right. And so once I realized, I'm like, wait a second, this is narrative transportation theory. I had this aha moment that really filled me up and encouraged me because I was like, I actually have an advantage that nobody else has working in the marketing space because I know narrative transportation theory. I've applied it in the interview and interrogation room. And so when I figured that out, I went all in with my marketing agency, and now I'm actually a story brand certified marketing expert. And so,
There you go.
and that so that was really a pivotal moment for me where I figured out uh, my skill set did have applicable value, and that was really that's what's become my mission now as part of LEO2CEO is getting other cops to recognize that they're not boxed in to just doing things that directly relate to their cop experience, uh, that their skill set has intrinsic value in other places.
You hit so many things on the head there. The skills that we learn as a cop. I remember talking to a business owner. I think he owned a plumbing business about 6 months ago, and he said that same exact thing. He's like, I'd rather hire a cop that doesn't know he has the skills than hire a civilian because I can trust the cop.
Yeah.
And he has skills that the civilian doesn't. He may not know that he does, but he
There's
has more
certain
skills than a civilian does in so many different ways.
Yeah, there's certain things that can't be taught, right? And
No.
that was like my that was my leadership philosophy too, when I was in law enforcement, was that I didn't place a whole lot of emphasis when it came to promoting people within our command staff. Years of service, they mean something, right? The years of service can typically account for experience, but not always, right? And it's not the be all end all to me. And so I generally didn't care about someone's seniority or number of years in. Do you possess leadership skill, and are you demonstrating those leadership skills where you're at right now? Because if you do, then I could teach you all the other things, right? The day to day and how to do it, but you have to have that built-in skill, and the same is true here. So the things that cops don't give themselves enough credit for is, think about how you have to collaborate as a team with other people, right? That has value as an entrepreneur or even in private employment. um, you have to work a case with detail, right? That has value as well. um, the juggling of calls, right? Going from call to call to call to call and juggling multiple cases at any given time is a lot like the multi-hat discipline that is necessary to start a business. You've got to do a lot of different things all at the same time, and you've got to spin one plate and then move to the next and spin that, right? And
Or even
so
be a manager within a role somewhere, or a salesperson,
yeah,
or anything. There's so much there. I mean,
yeah,
yeah. And then there's the
yeah,
communication side. We're the best. Some of the best
yes,
communicators in the world are law enforcement
yeah. I mean,
and
that's
salespeople. We are some of the best salespeople.
exactly.
We sell somebody to come with us peacefully.
Exactly.
So,
You hit the nail on the head, because so often in the LEO to CEO community, that is the one thing that everybody brings up and says that they're struggling the most with and they feel ill-equipped for is sales. And then I'm like, no, I disagree. It's quite the opposite. You're actually the most equipped for that because you've talked people into handcuffs, right? Like
you do. You
you
literally
know how to
talk somebody,
sell,
or you talk somebody off of jumping off of a bridge. I mean,
right?
it's
Yeah.
it is that whole thing. What would if you look back over your career or people that you work with, would you say a lot of people are getting out of law enforcement these days because they're burned out and they got certain things going on that are burning them out more than others?
I don't necessarily think that the burnout is any more than it ever has been, other than I will say, I mean, it's obvious that law enforcement agencies are short-staffed more now more than ever before, right? I mean, Chicago PD, as I understand, lost 400 people in January alone, right? And so, um, when things are short-staffed, obviously that's going to account for more burnout. So I don't want to say that that's not an issue. I'm not suggesting that, but I think, unfortunately, the political and social environment that we live in our world today, and it's not just the United States, it's everywhere, um, is exacerbating the problem. Because generally speaking, we can push through and deal with burnout, whether that's healthy or not, we can do it. Um, But when you don't feel supported, then what is the purpose in pushing through the burnout, right? And the burnout happens a lot faster, and the weight of it feels a lot heavier. And so, yeah, I've been seeing people leaving left and right. I mean, people joining our community and following my podcast and all of those things. And I will say, it's funny. My customer experience director, who's kind of my right hand man, is also a former cop, and him and I have commented here lately how it seems like most of the new people that we've connected with, either through just connections on LinkedIn or members of the community or new clients of ours, are all either from Illinois, Chicago metro area, or Australia. Um,
Interesting.
Tons and tons of cops from Illinois and Australia that are leaving law enforcement and trying to find out what's next for them.
Huh, that's quite interesting. Yeah, I know. Like even over here, the political side of stuff has gotten massive, and also following the U.S., it's huge. What would you say to somebody who loves what they do, but are just fed up with the political side of stuff? They want to keep being a cop, but they feel like they don't have that support. What would be your advice to them?
I think as silly and cliche as this sounds, you really have to sit down and take stock in what matters, right? Um, Create a T chart of sorts, right? Like, pros and cons. And I mean, like I said, I know it sounds cliche, but it's true. And ultimately that was how I ended up departing. Was I sat down and made a decision about, what is most important to me right now? Is it my career or is it my family? And I have young kids.
Hmm.
At that time I had two kids with a third on the way. I now have four. And I had to take stock in it and say, what's more important? I love my career, but I also felt fulfilled in my career. Like I had done all the things I wanted to do, and I was okay with leaving. And that undoubtedly my family and my kids were most important to me. But you got to take stock in things and understand really where your priorities lie, and what the situation looks like for you. Because I think one of the challenges that unfortunately most cops have is that we always have that grass is greener on the other side syndrome. Oh, I could just go to another agency and it's going to be better. No, it's just going to be different, right? It's the same stuff. It's just maybe different. Some things are better, some things are worse, and um,
You're gonna see
but
a
what
lot
I
of the
will,
same stuff that you saw before because you're so focused on it.
yeah, exactly. The one thing I will say very directly, uh, because this has been a bit of a pet peeve of mine, and I've been pretty frank with a lot of guys I've talked to, because it pains me to see um, just kind of where some of these guys and girls are that I talk to, where they'll get on a call with me and they'll just say, you know what, I hate it. I hate every day of it. I'm sick of it. I don't want to do it anymore, but I've got 5 years left and then I can draw my pension. Right. And so I have to ask them, I'm like, is the next 5 years of misery worth the pension you're going to get? Sit down and do the math. What does inflation look like? And I mean average inflation. I don't even mean the crazy out of control inflation that we're dealing with right now. But you sit down and look at average inflation, and I tell them, like, listen, if you do the math and sit down and really look through it, put together a business plan and identify what are you going to sell, who are you going to sell it to, and how much you're going to make off, what's your profit margins, right? What is the long-term plan? Sometimes what actually ends up is you realize, wait a second, I can actually, over the next 5 years, come out better than I would if I sucked it up and drew a pension. And so I like to quote Kevin O'Leary on this, because one of my favorite quotes, if you know Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, right?
Yeah.
Um, and his quote is, a salary is the drug they give you to forget your dreams.
Yep. It's dead right. You're spot on there. If you don't, it brings me back, and it was a little story for you about mine. So I was burned out. Wanted it was literally would have taken if somebody had said, "Chris, here's a job doing something else that had something to do with my skill set again." Not thinking about any of it, I would have taken it. And I remember talking to my wife, not even realizing I was burned out, but She goes, Chris, do you love what you do? And I go, oh, parts of it. She's got, well, if you love what you do, the money will come. Don't stress about the money. The money will come if you love what you do. And I was like, oh, that's easy for you to say, blah, blah, blah. I've made all the excuses in the world. I'm just a cop. That identity thing that we've already talked about. And then I left because I was so burned out. I almost was going to get, I was like, I want a divorce, all these different things. And the counselor was like, you're burned out, Chris. And this is when the first stage of me knowing what burnout was. And I did a motorcycle trip around the U.S. and I went and saw my uncle, who's a fairly well-known actor. He's been on the show as well. And he goes, I rode around and we go down to the local bar and we have a shot of Jack and a Bud Light. And he asked me, Chris, what's going on? And I kind of explained the whole story. And he goes, Chris, I just finished filming a movie in Georgia. Had the time of my life. Tons of laughs, tons of fun. Did this exceptional job. He's like, I came home, opened up my bank account, and there was money in there. He's like, but I didn't do it for that money. And it's funny, my wife had said the same exact thing, but it didn't click with me. And as you said, you've got to weigh up what's most important to you. And I love that. Take that, that salary is just a salary. You can always make more money, but you can't get your
Mhm.
life back.
Yeah. And what damage is it doing to those around you? Right. I mean,
Exactly.
the same thing I tell those guys is, you know what, if that's the attitude you get up with and go into work with every day, you're not only not doing yourself a favor, you're not doing your partners a favor, you're not doing your community a favor, you're not doing your spouse a favor, you're not doing your kids a favor, you're doing nobody a favor.
The scariest cop is the one that says, I'm here to clip a ticket.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to get the paycheck." If you're just there
Yep.
to get the paycheck, take some self awareness. Like that would
Yeah.
be, yeah. I like to ask, and we talked about this before we started recording. You've got the Start with Why book up behind you, and I'm a huge why guy. For anybody who's listened, or and that I've run a whole program around your why,
Mm-hmm.
and shifting that identity. Adam, what would you say your why of life is? And my belief and the research I've done and training that I've done with people is that it actually stems from our childhood. Uh, all started there and then has just been concreted in over the years. What would you say your why is that has caused you to join the police, to enjoy marketing, to do what you're doing now? What would be that underlying why?
I would like to say I have that figured out better than I actually do. You know, honestly, the thing I'll say that what drives me the most, what is important to me now, and it's different than it was when I started law enforcement. Um, what drives me is creating a childhood and a life for my kids where they feel like they were loved and given attention and um, prepared for the future. And I don't mean that in the typical, like, I feel like when most people say prepared for the future, they're like, hey, I'm going to leave my kids with lots of money. No, I actually, this is another thing that Kevin O'Leary says. He says, I don't plan on leaving my kids with any money, right? Because I don't want them to be spoiled and expectant, right? Like, I want them to learn. I hope that through my demonstration of what I do as a business owner and earning a living that gives us a comfortable way to live, that they will learn how to do that for themselves and be empowered to do that on their own, not expect something handed over to them. Right. So I guess, I mean, that's really my why. And quite frankly, um, I'm kind of a closet Amish, which is actually interesting because I do my company is really in tech, right? And
Yeah.
but if the circumstances were right and I could make it happen, I would just assume live off grid with nothing. I would rather have no TV, no internet, no cell phone. I just live off of my land, my property with some animals and like just be closet Amish.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, and I love that why. And with what I have, I know it goes deeper, but it's where you're at now, and it's awesome because it's driving you so hard. You can see it in your eyes when you say it. Um, what would you say to people that are, in my eyes, and this is why I do this training for helping people shift and really identify their identity so that then they can live by it and what they do serves them, not them serving what they do, which we've kind of talked about in the police. You get to that stage where it's like, all I'm doing is giving to this job. What is wrong with me? But yet I don't want to leave it because it is who I am. Uh, what would you say to people that are struggling with that why and purpose, or to identify it and identify who they actually are, not what they do?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's different exercises out there available to be able to discover that, and obviously, like I said, that's something I feel like even though I've done some of these, I'm still not as honed in on it as I would like to be, and so I think there's a need to redo some of those, right? And life circumstances change things too.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the Simon Sinek's book Start with Why is a fantastic read for getting into that. Um, I know your program is available for that as well. We were talking about that a couple of weeks ago. There's a really neat workshop program I like as well. That's actually part of the whole story brand sphere, if you will. But it's under the Business Made Simple University um, roof of
Yeah.
things. So if you go check out Business Made Simple University, there's a course in there called Hero on a Mission, and it's really interesting because it actually has you start, like, reverse engineer your life and its purpose by starting at the end. And so you write your own obituary is the very first exercise you do. You like, because the whole point is like, how do you want to be remembered, and what do you want people to say about you at your funeral when you die? Well, the reality is you're not there to influence anybody about what they're going to say, so they're going to say what's probably true, right? So
Mm.
if you want them to say what you've actually written in the ideal world, well, then you've got to live each day pursuing the things that are actually going to lead to people remembering you that way. And it's a really neat workshop to go through that. It just helps you align your focus on where things need to be on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, no, and I've done that exercise, not with them, but done that exercise, and it, man, is it impactful. I remember being on a
Mm-hmm.
podcast once with one of the cops here that runs it. It's called Cappuccino, and you literally, when you sit down in the cop car with him and record the episode, it's quite fun. And he asks that same question. You got your obituary is being written. You're writing your obituary. What does it say?
Yeah.
And it's powerful because it makes you think. But I love that. I love that. So, Adam, tell us a little bit about how people can get in touch with you and what you do specifically to help them, or whatever your thing is that your marketing thing that you tell people. I want you to sell yourself here. I'm giving you the opportunity. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, what I would love is for everyone that's listening to go to LEO2CEO.com. So that's LEO the number 2 CEO.com. And you'll see there immediately when the website loads at the very top, there's a free law enforcement transition course. So you can take that course. It's free, like I said, but take that course. I put that together in conjunction with several other people, and really the goal is to help cops, regardless of where they are in their career. Maybe they're just fresh out of the academy, even, or maybe they're thinking that the end of their career might be coming soon, or whatever. Right? Even if you've already left, take the free course. What it does is it breaks it down into 3 modules. The first one is all about transition. What does that look like? What sort of things are you going to experience that you might not be anticipating? How do you address those things? How do you go into it prepared to experience those things so they don't take you by surprise? Right. Then module 2 is all about transitioning out of law enforcement into the world of corporate security, because that's a big career path that a lot of cops like to take. And so I don't know anything about that. So I actually partnered up with a couple of guys that are experts in that area. One of them is actually a former cop himself, and he's currently the lead recruiter for Meta, Facebook,
Yeah.
and recruiting people for their corporate security team. But has also worked at Disney and Amazon and Google. And so those guys put together all the lessons in that module about what do you need to do to make yourself look appealing to a potential employer if you want to go into corporate security. How do you translate your skills from law enforcement into the corporate environment? Because if you just take your law enforcement resume and submit that, you're not going to get the job, I guarantee. And it doesn't matter how impressive your law enforcement resume is. And then the last module, I do everything in this one. It's all about how to start a business and what does that look like, and how to market that business and put together a marketing plan and a business plan. And so it's a free course. Go check it out. Of course, I'd love to have people join the community as well, but you could check that out when you actually go to the website. But at the very least, sign up for the free law enforcement transition course at LEO2CEO.com.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. So go have a look at that. We'll put the website in the description down below. And is there an email that people can reach out to you if they want to reach out to you directly?
Yep. You can just hit me up at Adam at LEO2CEO.com.
Perfect. Cool.
And then follow me on LinkedIn. That's the only social media platform I'm active on, because I hate social media. Like I said, I'm closet Amish. Um, so I'm very active on LinkedIn. I post lots of content on there, as well as podcast content and stuff. So you can follow me there. And I think my slug for LinkedIn is the real Adam Wills. So, but just search me, you'll find me.
Perfect. And we'll put that all that link down in the description as well. Uh, what would be what would be your number one piece of advice for law enforcement in these times at the moment?
Well, I think I'm going to break that into two, because as a little bit of context and background here, I've been accused by some people of trying to get cops to leave law enforcement. And that's not my goal. So that's why I want to break this into two and say, first and foremost, if you are somebody who is absolutely still in love with your career, you're happy, you're not burned out, you're not aggravated, you're not looking for the end of your law enforcement career, I want to encourage you to stick with it. And I want to encourage you to know that no matter how it seems on the outside, that you are supported by and large by your community, and to stay motivated because of that, because we need good cops still, right? There's lots of people that are leaving. We need good people out there to hold the line. But I will tell you, you wear your seatbelt every day because you don't anticipate getting into an accident, right? But you wear your seatbelt. You wear your vest, not because you think you're going to get shot that day, but because it could happen, right?
Mm.
You don't know when the end of your career is going to come, and no matter how happy you are with it, something tragic could happen tomorrow. And that may not be physical injury. It could be anything that ends your law enforcement career unexpectedly. Be prepared, have a plan. That's part of what we cover in the transition course. So that's my message to those that are still in love with the job. For everybody else that's struggling with feeling well, they're probably all feeling underappreciated at this point. But maybe feeling burned out, maybe looking for what's next and trying to identify what that looks like, and trying to determine how to make a decision to move forward. I would say first and foremost, you're not boxed in. You're not boxed into your law enforcement career. You're not boxed into your post law enforcement career only being things that relate directly to your law enforcement career. There's nothing that pains me more than seeing guys retire, go on vacation for a week or two, and then come back just to work the front desk until they're 95 years old. So look at what opportunities are out there. Give yourself some credit for the skill set you have. Know that your skills have intrinsic value in the marketplace, and that people desire what you have to offer, and don't box yourself in.
I love that. I love that. I remember when I was on did like protection, doing like private security type side of stuff for VIPs. The number one thing they said during training is is the 7 P's: proper planning, and preparation prevents piss poor performance.
Yep.
So even if you're looking at getting out, get prepared.
Yep.
So
we
yeah.
all understand the concept of a backup plan, right? Every
Yeah.
ops plan we've ever written has a backup plan,
Oh, if not
but very
multiple.
few of us, yeah, very few of us have a backup plan for our law enforcement career.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you have to execute it, but it means that it's there, so you don't have to execute it.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep. It's a
last
file in the
question.
drawer.
Last question I like to add. I like to ask Adam is, what would you say your top tip to self happiness is?
My, you know, I'd say get into a routine that helps you stay balanced. So like my routine and the things that I do that help me stay balanced. I get up in the morning. I get up at 5:30. I like to get up early before everybody else is up, and I take some time to read my Bible and just meditate on things. And hey, if you could do that however you want to do it, right? What
Mm,
meditation of some sort, some quiet time to just be inner reflective, right? And then I like to take a little bit of time to when I can. This is one I struggle with, but journal,
mm.
um, and do some journaling each day. But also take care of my body. I have a green drink every day with lots of veggies and stuff in it, but you have to do those things that take care of you. Find time to step away from things, and take care of yourself, because it's easy for us as cops and entrepreneurs to just push through. And I'm still guilty of that. I struggle with it every day, and I have to remind myself. I actually there's a system that I really like to use called the Core Four that helps you focus on four different areas of your life. It's body, being, balance, and business, right? And so that's actually something we go through in the LEO2CEO community. We have mastermind groups, and we put everybody through this core four training on how to balance those things on a day-to-day basis and keep track of how you're doing in balancing those things. And so, yeah, body, being, balance, and business. You've got to keep those things well balanced.
I love that. I love that, Adam. Any last words before we wrap up?
I don't. I think I'd just be repeating myself at this point. No, I think it's good. I love what you're doing. I appreciate the way that you're reaching out. It's one of the positive side effects, I'll say, of where we're at right now with lots of cops that are leaving law enforcement, is that it seems like now more than ever in the history of law enforcement, there are so many resources of people out there that have walked these paths that are trying to help others that are trying to work their way down the same path that we've been through. And so there's lots of resources out there. You're one of them. There's a multitude of others. And so I thank you for what you're doing for our brothers and sisters in blue.
And thank you, Adam, as well. I know what you're doing makes the biggest difference. Like, I wish that I had had the awareness to actually search for something like that, because it would have made things would have collapsed so much time for me than trying to figure it out all what am I going to do next, how am I going to do it,
Yeah,
how am I going to pay bills, all that different stuff would have made it so
me
much
too.
more simple. So yeah, so thank you, Adam. And this is Fight the Burnout. Now remember, I want you to. There is so much good stuff today. We talked about so many things, so many tools, so many different ideas. Whatever's popping up for you right now, write it down and just implement it. Start taking action on it. As cops, we're very good at taking action, so make sure you do it and just implement that one thing. Then come back and listen again. Also, if you can, share this out, like, subscribe, all those fun things that we all need, but we need them in order to make the show bigger, so that more people get out there as well. But if you are looking for assistance, you can always email me at team@createfromwhy.com, and I will personally email you back. And till next time, thank you for listening. Stay out there. You are supported, and stay safe. And we have you six.